You guys remember Henry Kissinger, who once said, to be an enemy of America is very dangerous, but to be a friend of America is fatal. So basically, I grew up in Vietnam, and I just never knew this asymmetrical nature of how I now see America in context of the rest of the world. So basically, you guys remember the New World Order was created in order to represent the new growing friction between the West and Islamic and Confucian civilizations. And I remember clearly when I think about the former, I think of Shirin. And I think of the latter, I think of our other friend, Ai Weiwei. So moving forward, somehow 1993 was so imminent. 1993 was somehow the classic, and don't get me wrong, I'm not meant to be the close reader of foreign affairs, but I became to do so, to be one of those people. But 1993, looking back now, was consequential. I remember reading Sam Huntington, The Clash of Civilization. You remember? Predicting the collision between the West and the rest of the world, particularly the Middle East and Far East and whatnot. Growing in Vietnam was kind of intense because for some reason, I couldn't help but be politically aware that the landmass power of China is looming over the tiny country in Vietnam. Any moment now, you just never know what's going to happen. Vietnam have the advantage of geopolitical location because half land, half sea. So when I come to America, I was aware of that predicament. But again, getting back to 1993 was so imminent because it was a year that also the Gulf War happened. It was a year that, oh boy, if you remember Tony Lake, the then Director of National Security, delivered the lecture at Johns Hopkins University. The title of his lecture was From Containment to Enlargement. That was written by the young Anthony Blinken, who I met not long ago through Aggie Gunn. And read it now, I never had this until the arrival of Trump presidency. So I'm learning more, and I was reading on the subway to meet my friend Carmen today, bringing her here. And from containment to enlargement, reading now is super naive and somewhat arrogant to reverse the long-standing policy of containment, Job L. Cannon. So why am I always saying, oh, this political thing? I don't mean to, but that's how it is. And that's kind of go directly to the heart of Shirin's work. Shirin Neshat. 93, it was also the year that she had her first solo show at Franklin Furnace. I was barely in New York, but I went to see that show. The show included photographs, sculptural objects, I think, installation, film, of course. And it was so electrifying and challenging just because I mentioned Sam Huntington, The Clash of Civilization. You can't take thing for granted. You can't just perceive things as simplistic terms. And the work Shirin had in that show, Unveiling, was one of those occasions that you had to think twice about things. And that's exactly what it was. It was the way that similarly, I think for her sake, she went to undergrad and grad school at Berkeley as a painter. Thank God she gave up painting. But but I saw a painting of Shirin and a mutual friend of a woman with a veil. It was not her medium. Somehow she managed to work for storeroom or architecture for a good decade or even 12 years. And that's where everything came to her, alchemically speaking. And whatever the surrender to that force, that life experience, she's absorbed everything like a rice sponge. And that's what Shirin was. And what is so remarkable was how do you absorb everything and then you let it dictate what you're going to make. Matter and form, images that came directly from her cultural heritages. But she did it with such self-assurance, with such dignity. I would even use the word stateliness. And that's what you confront with Shirin's work. You know, it's highly personal, but it's also very charged. It's incredibly universal in its exquisite beauty, but it has a sense of urgency. And I think all the theocratic rules in the Middle East and elsewhere is probably threatened to meet Shirin. She hasn't been welcomed back to her country for a long time now. But when I think about Shirin's work, I think about, again, the dignity of how you can restrain and somehow modulate that image that's sustained in our memory. And to me, that is a power also of woman autonomy, sensuality, and everything in between. And I can go on, but for now, I think you just have to join me to welcome her up to the stage, to accept this award. My dear friend Shirin Neshat.
Thank you, yes. Thank you so much. Good evening. This is such a wonderful night. I like how intimate it is. I'm just really honored to be here and accept this award, and I'm very touched and full of gratitude to the Asia Society for this recognition. Thank you, Phong, for always unpredictable insights in me and my work. That's why I wanted him to be the one, because Phong is a very old friend, but you never know what he's thinking. And I love how your mind works, how poetic you are. And I just have to say I have an interesting history and collaboration with Asia Society. In 2003, Melissa Chu, who at the time was newly appointed as a curator and eventually became a director, invited me to show one of my videos, Tuba. And I think it was her very first exhibition in this museum. And we ended up doing a major retrospective at the Hirshhorn later in some other years. In 2008, she invited me back to co-curate an exhibition together with another artist of Ardeshir Mohassez, who most of you don't know, but he's a legendary artist of satire from Iran who had a very unfortunate circumstance and largely forgotten in his own country. Beautiful, masterful work. And Asia Society gave us an opportunity to present his work, which was hugely successful, a great amount of audience and press. And sadly, he died a few months later, but with the blessing of seeing his work finally being given the tribute and recognition at a major museum in New York. So thank you for that. And just a year ago, Rachel Cooper and Yasafumi Nakamori invited me to show my film, Land of Dreams, to a sold-out audience in downstairs, and we had a very lovely Q&A. So I have been here in the capacity of an artist, a curator, and a filmmaker. So thank you for always welcoming me back. I feel a part of the family. So while I'm up here, I just wanted to say that I wanted to add that I respect this institution. I'm very proud of it, not only for pushing the boundary and going beyond and showing historical exhibitions, but also modern and contemporary, but also going and pushing beyond what we understand as Asia, Far East or South Asia, but paying attention to countries in the Middle East, Iran, Afghanistan, to Arab countries. I think that's so significant. And personally, I was thinking today what I wanted to say to all of you who are on the board and are part of the team, that I'm a strong believer that we need more institutions who have the platform to provide opportunities for those who are underrepresented and undermined within the Western culture. And in many ways, Asia Society is one of the only institutions that I can recall who has been and could continue to fill this gap, to be inclusive and to continue to broaden its programs of exhibitions and educations and public programs of voices of diverse ethnicities and also different constituencies. Not many other institutions are willing to do that and are able maybe to do that. So I'm looking to you to pursue this direction deeply and to really represent diverse voices and communities that if you look at the larger picture of Asia. And I really strongly believe that these voices of these artists and communities in many ways are the only alternatives to the otherwise Eurocentric art hegemony that continues to dominate the global culture. So thank you, Asia Society, for what you're doing, and keep up the great work and expand your vision and continue doing what you're doing. I'm very happy to be a part of this community, and thank you for honoring me.